It's my pleasure to introduce Gaggan Anand, the owner of Asia's Best Restaurant, which recently just retained its title for the 4th year in a row. And he's also the first chef to win 2 Michelin stars in Bangkok's first Michelin Guide. So we have a celebrity in our midst, if you will. So, Chef, you've certainly had a very impressive past few years. And someone like you doesn't get to where he is without, some kind of passion and drive. So what exactly inspired you to get behind the stove and start cooking?
I think I was very good in non-studious things. So I used to bunk school, go for concerts, do the wrong and make it right. And cooking is a family thing in India. And luckily, it's one of those countries which still have kitchens left in their homes. I mean, today the problem in our environment is that because we live in big cities, we don't have any more kitchens in our home. And we live in 7-Eleven to restaurants. So the world is changing so fast. And I thought that I wanted to be a drummer. I wanted to be a musician. And I thought that it would not be profitable enough. I won't get a Bloomberg stint on the stage drumming. So I thought cooking is more interesting. So thankfully, I chose things in the right way. And it took me 22 years to come here, so it's fine.
Wow. So, for those of you who haven't quite put your finger on it yet, you're originally from India.
Yes.
So why choose to start your restaurant in Bangkok as opposed to your home country or a culinary capital of the world like London or New York?
I think I'm a typical Indian. So in India, we have this thing called when you leave your country, you never go back. Oh. So I did that, and I thought the only country, as an Indian passport, you're very lucky that you can only get visa on arrival in Thailand or in, I mean, if I had visa on arrival in America or in London, I would have been there already. So, yeah, and I mean, and then the whole India would be there already. So, so I mean, it was simple. It was just my problem was that I was against time and tired of futuristic cooking, and whenever I used to put something futuristic on a plate or on a box or on somebody, the person would come and tell me, "You're an idiot." So I said, "I don't know," but then I thought that maybe I always believe one of my best teachers taught me. He said, "You never convince me in your answers. You always confuse me." So I thought I would take the route of confusion, and today's world is about how confused you are is how convinced you are. And that's why I tried to do it in Bangkok, because this was a place where there was no conviction in Indian food, like any other city. And the disaster on every Indian restaurant around the world is about a certain recipe and a certain bread. And I thought that let's take the challenge, and why only we would look at Western cuisine and take that as the notion of luxury of food. Because we have given most of the things that the Western people cook today with comes from Asia, comes from all this part of the world, and still we are so ignored. And I thought that how do I present that in a more beautiful way? And that's why Bangkok was the best place. I don't have to work. I was cooking in a country and there was no chili in the supermarket. I mean, imagine that. In Thailand, I mean, I can get my chilies, I can get whatever I want, and in the end, Thailand and India has a similar religion, similar history, similar culture, and chili and curry is the platform that sets it up. So I was in a comfort zone.
So if you had to do it all over again, you'd still choose Bangkok?
That's a tough question, because I've announced this last year that I'm moving to Japan officially, and yesterday I was in Japan, and
he flew back especially for all of you here.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, who would miss this? So, yeah. So I mean, I would love to go back and start something new. And the thing is, if I do something here, it's too predictable, and I hate being in a comfort zone, because if you win awards and you consistently win them and you consistently do well in what you do, the only challenge you have in your life is to beat yourself. And I'm a madman, I'm a crazy guy, I'm suicidal in my work, because you're running the most successful restaurant in the country, And if you're running the most successful restaurant in the country, and then would it be suicidal to continue it or to discontinue it? And I'm discontinuing it. So I'm kind of stabbing myself. But I think most of the industries in today's world, from automobile to all that we are talking about the whole day, they need to reinvent in life. And I think if I keep doing what I'm doing, then I will never reinvent myself. So I've cooked myself from the 30s to 40s. And now it's time for me to cook in a different way from 40s to 50s. And that's what I think as a life is, as a chef.
So, being in Southeast Asia, what have you found the advantages or challenges of owning a business and running a business in this part of the world?
As I said, I moved in this country with $500 because that was the money you need to show to get the visa on arrival. So that was the money I had in my hand. And that was what I think is the image and reputation of the food here. I grew with this changing landscape. It's not about Bangkok. It's about Bangkok, Singapore, Malaysia. We were known for our street food, cheap eats, rice, noodles. This is what we were famous about. And suddenly, the gap, as I said, the gap is changing. The world is changing in a very big way. And I was part of this landscape change of fine dining, where suddenly Asian food was in. And then I think what happens is we as Asians, we don't trust our own self. We spent 18 years of our life eating our own cuisine, and suddenly at the age of 19, you want to be a French chef, with no offense to French cuisine. But you want to be a French chef, but 18 years of your life, you'll be just eating Asian food, your home cuisine. And suddenly you want to be a French or an Italian or something which is Western. And that is the biggest change that has happened in the last 10 years. People are trying to do Peranakan cuisine. People are trying to do regional Balinese cuisine. People are going more into their own cuisine and rediscovering those things that were never thought to be edible. And that's the biggest change that's happened in the last 10 years.
Something that's also been happening, which I've noticed, I'm not sure if the audience has, is that a lot of these great chefs have chosen to start closing down their restaurants like you have decided to in 2020. So, why do that? I think that's the question on everybody's mind. I want to know as well. I haven't been able to get a table either, just FYI.
I mean, like, most people thought that it was a lie and a propaganda, and I was trying to use that as a PR to fill my restaurant, but I was trying to remind myself, and I keep reminding myself every day, that good things do come to end, and you would not stay on the top. And I personally am I challenge myself, as I said, and I think that my cuisine will peak up next year, and I would quit on my peak. Because it's a very simple theory, especially in what I do and how I do. You climb the mountain, and you got to go to the top of the mountain, and you climb down to climb the next mountain. You can't go from one top of the mountain to the other peak. You can't do that. And that's what I think as a restaurant is. So I will peak up next year, but I don't want to be one of those restaurants whose name hangs and I'm old and pissed off at every customer who comes to my restaurant. And this is what we see in many restaurants with old chefs. And I don't want to be. So fame takes its toll, and I don't think I want to burn out as a Gaggan as what it is today. I think I don't want to burn out, and I want to stay and be actively cooking. As a chef, we need to cook, and I have to do that. But I have to climb down this mountain, start a new journey, and reinvent myself. And that's what I'm looking for. In a smaller city, not in Tokyo, in Fukuoka, not in a big challenging environment, but in my own peace, and opening a much smaller restaurant where I could give my 200% to everyone who comes to the restaurant.
How small? How small is the restaurant going to be?
It's going to be max 16 seats, minimum 12 seats.
So it's going to be harder to get a reservation, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and it'll be more expensive, so I'll be
okay. Fair warning, everyone. You still have 2 years to try and get a reservation at his restaurant here. Something I've also noticed that you've been doing recently is you become a very avid investor in restaurants. So why is that the case? We've got a lot of investors in the room. Maybe they're wondering what the next big thing might be. Do you have any words for them?
Yeah. I mean, every day somebody pops in, hey, I have money. How do you think? Would you like to open Gaggan in London and New York and cash out? And there was this guy, he said, hey, you're closing Gaggan. Why don't you give me a brand? But I felt like I should not be that person, because the best thing that I did was I started investing in talent. We ignore talent, we ignore ideas, and we ignore the spirit of young people shining above you. And I think that's the most important part in our industry, which is it's such a fast consumable product. You eat, and within 12 hours, it's out of your body. And that's the thing, it's so fast. And that's why the talent is also fast. And I think as a businessman, I need to grab the guy who has got the potential of a good entrepreneur, ethical, and has the commitment. And that's where you put in money, and that's how I have 5 restaurants, and I'm growing as a restaurateur. So
and what are they? What are those restaurants?
Now look at me, I have not opened curry house, kebab house, bread house, no. What have I done? I've opened a new German cuisine. I've done a as Garima's restaurant as a woman who couldn't cook and work harder and creates the difference. I have Meatlicious, which was a steakhouse and is doing very well. And fourth is I have a new restaurant. It's called Mihara Tofuten, and it's about Japanese cuisine, which is not a sushi or not a tempura or not a teppanyaki, but a tofu-based omakase. And I'm opening a natural wine bar, and it's called Wet. And
it's called what, sorry?
Wet, W-E-T. It says, don't get wet in Bangkok. So, yeah. It's a natural wine bar, and I thought it got to be naughty. And it's a little sleazy, but it's the change. Thailand used to be famous for sleaze, and now it's famous for Gaggan. Yeah, so the change has happened, and I think that's very important. And it's about how people perceive a country and how it has changed. So I'm part of that change, and I take the best opportunity to make money on it.
So in the past few years, you've won so many awards, different types of awards. How has that taken a toll on you running your restaurant, and how do you do things differently because of that? You've had, your reservations list go through the roof, interviews on end.
See, 4 years back or 5 years back, when you were not that famous, and that time things like Facebook and Instagram just started in a big way, and people would come on a Valentine's to my restaurant, and the girl had no idea that she was being brought to an Indian restaurant, which was progressive, and they would have a fight in front of my door that why the hell have you brought me to the Indian restaurant for my Valentine's? Okay. And then they would sit as a couple, and all they would do the whole evening for 3 hours is on the mobile. And that's a disaster. It's bloody romance. And it's a disaster on a table. And from then, I started thinking how do we change fine dining? How do we change people when they come to a restaurant? They don't feel like they're coming to a restaurant. How do we change the pretension? As I said, fine dining can be a fine board meeting. Fine dining can be a business meet, can be a deal, can be entertainment, can be many things. But in the end, the fame has brought so much of expectation, and I don't have that as an ingredient in my restaurant. So what do we do? How do we change things? So what we did was we made people lick our plates. We make people go completely from a fine dining approach to a more easy, casual, where the waiters force food on your mouth, and it's cheeky, it's sleazy, but it's what I call as food porn. And food is a porn, and I'm a porn star.
Okay, so your menu, there are no words on it. So how does that work? It's all emojis, those little smiley faces.
It's exactly the cost of fame, because on one table or one room you have somebody's from Mexico and who's eating in this jet lag of a breakfast, and there's someone from Japan who's already having a supper, and there's somebody from other countries, from India, from different parts of the world, and somebody said, let's have 7 different languages as a menu. I said, no, I was in this first flight of my flight to New York, and I was 16 hours in a plane. So I got Wi-Fi for the first time at 40,000 feet, so it was amazing. So Meenakshi sent me a mail saying, you got to finish the menu, and I got the mail on the flight. So I started typing the menu on my iPad, and the first word I typed, it suggested me an emoji. And I thought that was the new language. I can't make a menu on an iPad. I can't make menu looks like videos or things. I said, an emoji menu is a global language, and it's teasing, and it's surprising, and you don't know what's coming because it's an emoji. So it's the most Instagrammable thing in my restaurant.
Okay, so building on that. A lot of us here have flown in for this event. So, of course, apart from your restaurant, which is obviously the best restaurant in Bangkok, where else will we see you as a professional chef frequenting? I'm sure people are, hunting for suggestions right now.
I think you must not miss the opportunity of eating the street food here. It's dirty, it's ugly, and it tastes bloody good. So, yeah. And ugly food tastes good, and the more the pollution, the more the smell, it tastes even better. I come from India, and I always say you can do as much fine dining as you can, but in the end, a bowl of noodle and soup is the best thing ever. So I think there are other restaurants, of course, there are so many lists. You can check out any list. There's so many young talent. I would love to promote my restaurants and make money on you, but I think street food is not to be ignored in Thailand, so enjoy that as much as you can.